Konnichiwa, minasan. Good afternoon, everyone. And we are back for another episode of Live Album Discussions. Today, we will be talking about Dark Clouds Volume 2, the second of a trilogy which I had recorded last year and I've slowly been releasing throughout this year. There is also an album that's going to be coming out next month, and there will be a music video for the lead song from this album, Mo Mo More, and that will kickstart things as well. And I know a lot of people have probably been wondering why I haven't done any of the Stephen King reviews. There's just been a lot of stuff going on. But I have done the Desperation one, and since we got hit by the holidays, I thought I'll still keep it Monday, but I'll return with a review for Salem's Lot near um I was thinking I would do it this week, but then I'm gonna have to go away the week after that. So maybe I'll record for different seasons as well, and I'll just set it to post a week from next Monday, like the Monday coming up. Salem's Lot, and then week after, just have it set to post different seasons. But that has been a really fun experience nonetheless. I've read 29 books now, almost 29 anyway. I've read 28 fully. I'm near the end of Skeleton Crew, and then when I read the next four after that, then I'll do the ranking as well. So that's all the updates with everything that's going to happen. Shout outs to Chris Paslowski for saying I can't wait. Yeah, it's definitely going to be good. There will be a third volume of Dark Cloud, but that won't be released until later in the year. Next month, I'm thinking Groundhog Day. I'm going to release an album called I'm Afraid of Canadians, which has a graffiti style artwork done by Mitchell Smith, aka Retrospect. So that's going to have a cool cover, and that's got like the rest of the songs I recorded during the whole Dark Cloud saga of recording. But I recorded so many other albums as well, like I'm Afraid of Canadians, the Jazz and Blues album, the reincarnation of Super Kami Guru Alucard, many things like that, right? So it's just been I've actually slowed down in recording because I've been reading so much, but I've got so many albums I'm still just able to throw one out there every month, like for most of the year anyway. So with Dark Clouds Volume 2, now that we've caught everybody up in the audience on what is the news and updates, with this album, it's 10 tracks, and that's going to be a theme you will all notice for the next several albums. Like, I basically decided, because I want to go for the overall goal of making 500, if 10 songs is an album, I would already have had more albums because I've made so many chunkier albums already. I didn't want to break apart SKGA Goes to Japan because that story just felt more complete as having it as a whole album. But then as I was reviewing it too recently, the one track was actually supposed to be part of the Dark Cloud trilogy. Basically, the song Flip That Coin, which is in the middle of the album. I didn't even realize it until I had released it, but I say Dark Clouds Volume 1 because that was originally going to be the opening track. But I just felt like it worked better for the album because it really had like a punchy style to the rhyme that I thought like we need that part of the album to have that critical juncture of like lyrical skill. So that's why it ended up going. Now, with this album, all of these were actually intended for this months ago. Like before the new year, I actually had recorded all of them, with the exception of that one track that probably should have been on the first, but worked well where it was. This was all lined out exact because the first track, Don't Need Plastic Love, Only Real Love brackets, that's that's a song where I was inspired by Maria Takeuchi to kind of take a crack at like the Plastic Love vibe because I really love that song. I actually have her album Variety. She's fantastic singer and songwriter. So I love her music, and that's just one of the most memorable songs she did. And I could really relate and identify with the concept even more in our modern era. So that's why I felt like to even take that song further, show the influence and make it relevant again in our era. That's kind of the style I did with that one. And then that song, it's kind of funny. The one part of, well, actually, it was two parts really that were talking about this one girl. It was this girl I had a conversation with, right? And she seemed nice at first, and she was like European. She was cool, it seemed. So she kind of challenged me because she didn't think I could come up with rhymes that rhymed with what I rhymed. So I just threw it together like that as sort of a challenge. And I thought I did pretty good considering, right? Like I found way more rhymes than she probably expected me to find for it. So that's the first track. It kind of starts off on that note, which I think is a good one. And then we get to the second track, Let My True Feelings Show, which the first beat that was done by Do Tanuki, longtime fellow collaborator. This beat was done by me, and this is one I came up with the lyrics and the beat to after talking to my Japanese friend Takumi, because he was saying like he was trying to steer me down a path of making a song like certain songs from the past. And I kind of saw what he was going for, but I'm like, I can only write what I know. I can only like let my true feelings show. That's what I am as an artist. I can't really just fake it. Like with me, it's more natural to just write my own stuff most of the time and just go that way. Now, if there is a certain song that strikes the mood, I have done covers too, right? But for the most part, I think it's harder for me to express songs or cover songs, even if I was to do karaoke, even if I like the songs and whatnot, if I can't relate to them. There is that connection to the music, which I think is very important. So that was like kind of like an old school, like reggae kind of tune in a way, I think. But it sounds really cool. It's relaxed, it's chilled. I really like how I came up with the beat and then wrote the lyrics. Like as I was talking to him, I was like, okay, what do they want to hear? All right, I wrote this. I was like, something like that, like that, like that. And I kept, and at first I was doing it as a joke, right? I think he understood, like, I get what you're saying, but I don't know how to do it. Should I do something like this, like this, like this, like that? And then I took all those parts and I combined them together and I made the song. That's where that all came from. It was sort of like a conversation, my end of the conversation, like making lyrics about like the situation we were talking about. So I really like the realism behind that. The third track, which samples Rebel Yell by Billie Holiday, is called Mo Mo More. And that is like my own spin on like, okay, trying to do something people could relate to, a familiarity to it, like, you know, something that was a big hit to kind of jog their memories. You know, that's what they were really saying, because a lot of Japanese artists do it. But I had to do it my own different way. And I feel like I did, because I took what he was singing, but I like completely switched the concept around. Like it's got elements of the melody, but I added so much myself to it. And then I added instrumentation that just completely changed the vibe of the song, which I love. It's all in the same key, but it's a completely different spin on the song. And I really loved how I did that. I still added elements to it, but I blended it with a melody that kind of worked in the opposite way of what the original was trying to do. So I made it my own, right? And I really like that because you could still hear the influence of that song, but you could also tell like it's vastly different. It goes in its own direction, which I love. And then that gets us into track number 4. That one was produced by Tone Jones, another longtime collaborator. In fact, he's probably made um second most beats for me above myself. Like I've made a lot in total, and then there's been other beats that were done by other producers too, right? And some of them, like Dotanuki and Lone Wolf, have done a lot as well. Kamar's done a few now, like he's done a decent amount. And there's other producers too that have like kind of just given me beats. But this one was definitely one I got from Tone a long time ago because I really liked the groove of it. And then I was talking to this girl that lived in Brampton, and I liked her for a while. So, and she was trying to sell me into some like sort of energetic Kangen water scam, right? And like I didn't know what it is. I looked into it later. Apparently, it's some really horrible pyramid scheme business they're trying to throw on everybody. But like this is somebody I thought, oh, well, they actually live near me. They're probably normal. I didn't know about all that. Luckily, I didn't get scammed or nothing. But the fact that they tried to charm me just to scam me on that stuff, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a song out of it because that's what my mentor James said. He said, good or bad, try to take the experience and do something good with it. So I always looked at it as even if it's like a song about something negative, I'm still getting something positive out of it. So the way this all turned out, the whole process of events, it plays out like a thread, sort of a subplot line throughout the whole story of the album. So you have Tribute for Samar, which is what this song is called. And that's like the first part of this, right? And then track number 6, it's like you get the other part of it. And then it's almost like there's an epilogue sort of part, which I would call track number 8, because and it doesn't fully connect with it, but it's like you could pretty much guess it connects like a triangle as the end result. So Tribute for Samar, part 1, track number 4, 6, Energetic Kangen Water Scammers, part 2, and sort of a conclusion, but in case you're wondering, okay, what's the end result of this? You get track number 8, AI Girlfriend. So that's just an interesting note. When you're listening to the album, you sort of get other parts of a story that is telling itself, but those tracks do all almost like perfectly click if you look at them the right way as like a subplot in the story. So between the first and the second part, we have track number 5, which I did the beat for myself, called Brazilian Queen, which it was this Brazilian lady named Carla who wanted me to make her a song. And she's actually been a long time fan and supporter. So I had to get a friend of mine to basically help me with the Portuguese part. So they did the vocals for the Portuguese parts, except for the one bridge, which I had them teach me how to sing properly. And then the rest they did. And yeah, that's how we came up with that one. And I like it because it's got a Latino sort of jazz groove to it. So, and that's a beat I made myself. So that's always, I'm proud when I have that accomplishment to go with. So yeah, with this album, I really liked some of the like instrumental and creative ideas I came up with, even as far as just the music, like trying to do new different things, right? And then getting to the second part of the Tribute for Samar subplot, we get Energetic Kangen Water Scammers, which is almost like a warning, like, don't fuck with me with this scammy bullshit. I don't need it. I don't want it. But not only that, it's also the reason I decided to make this song was so that because I had never heard of Energetic Kangen Water Scammers, right? And do you know what's funny? They try to preach this concept to sell you in that they're making this water in Japan and that it comes from Hokkaido and all this stuff. But the one thing that doesn't add up with their story, and I know this because I've studied Japanese for so long, if they really were Japanese run, even if it was made into katakana, with their pronunciation, there would be no jick or can't sounds. There would be e na jiku kan gin. That's what it would be. no mizu, like water, mizu, right? There would be no energetic Kangen water. Like they wouldn't do that. It doesn't fit into the like logical structure of their language. They wouldn't do that. And they have many brands over there, famous brands we all use here in North America, right? And they know them, they spell them as their own thing, but they still have to say a lot of them differently because of how their language is structured. So if they would do that for foreign things, which are indefinitely what they are, they're internationally known for that, something they created, they would probably go with an original Japanese name. And if they were really going to go this approach that it makes you want to believe, they would call it something that fits within their language structure. Like I said, and enajiku kangen no mizu or something, but it would not be what they're saying, right? So that's track number 6, right? And the whole concept of that, which this beat was made by Lone Wolf, was that the scam really needs to stop. And in case people were not aware of it, be careful. Watch out for these motherfuckers. They're shady. They pitch it like it's some real business idea, but it's not. And like the thing is, it's technically illegal to do it in Canada. I looked it up online, right? So, um, why am I afraid of them? Afraid of them, you'll find out when the album's released. There's a whole story for that. I'm just reading the comments now. Konnichiwa to Cert 420. Can you write a song about Rocket League? I don't know what that is. Gaming clan called Solar. Sorry, I don't know what that is. I can't write what I don't know. That's what the whole second track is about. Track number 8 sounds fire. AI girlfriend. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I did it just kind of as an experiment to see like how it works. And what I found was most interesting is that as it starts to get to know you, it starts to figure things out more than when you first talk to it. Like it starts to develop like an understanding of how you think based on the way you talk to it, which is really interesting because it's like sort of like a child learning how something works, even though they're like we're naturally programmed to just observe everything in our environment. This has that sort of understanding to it, which is pretty interesting. Like it would eventually suggest things to me that it would just know. Like if I said certain things and asked like recommendations, it would have like pretty damn good recommendations for the kind of stuff I like. And that sort of became fun. And then, I kind of thought about it like the whole purpose of it is AI girlfriend because like people get lonely and all that. But then I looked at it from like another angle and I thought, it's kind of funny that that's how um life has, advanced and developed over the years, right? So, I do think it's fire since you're talking about track number 8. Track 8 is fire in that sense because I took a realistic sort of approach to how the future could be perceived with that subject. Like right now, that might seem weird to a lot of people. It's a new thing, it's not like cemented in our society, but it's like because of what it provides as like sort of a service, it makes you think that eventually people could switch to wanting to be in real relationships to some form of like an artificial intelligence being created as a relationship. So it's just easier to do with that because you're always going to get the reaction you want rather than take the risk of unpredictable reactions from another. And that's what like I find is kind of fascinating. Like it could go that way for some people. Everybody's minds is different, right? So, and because there's the whole multiverse theory and infinite potential of all things in this universe, you could really see like that could happen. It's like one of those Stephen King stories that, like, has a bit of lightheartedness to it, but at the same time, it's kind of like, I can't believe it went there. That's the vibe it kind of gives, right? So, but the idea of the song though is like, yeah, stress dealing with real people. People disappoint you. They don't have common interest. You would at least get some sort of comfort that you could always talk to it about what you wanted and get what you want, right? So that's what the whole concept is about. Like, that's how society has changed. And it all kind of ties back to, the dark clouds hovering over our society nowadays. Like, why I don't need plastic love brackets, only real love. Like, it's the main story thread that ties it all together between all these different songs. And then after track number 6, before we get to AI Girlfriend, because there's a few other things I'll say about it after. But yeah, so Kangen Water Scammer is sort of like the part 2 of the tribute for Samara. Then we get Dark Cloud Part 2, which is sort of like its own spin-off trilogy of songs, like 3 parts, all similar themed songs, but different melodies, different lyrics, all that, but all kind of painting like its own little mosaic picture, if you will. So we got the first part on volume 1, we get the second part on volume 2 at track number 7, and you'll get the third part when the third volume is released. But you could combine all 3 of those together and you would see they're all kind of discussing the same thing, just from different viewpoints, different lyrics, and different instrumentals and melodies. So that's track number 7. That was another beat that I did myself. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that was one I did do myself. AI Girlfriend was Tone Jones, which that's what I wanted to mention. And I really liked how that beat turned out. So that's why I went with that one too, because this was a difficult song for me to find a beat that fit, to be honest. Usually I can hear a beat and I'll automatically get like a title for a song. Like, okay, this sounds like that. I'm going to make a song about that. But with this one, I was like, okay, I had the song, but I didn't have the beat. I didn't know, like, I had this beat sitting there, but I didn't know I was going to do this song to it. In fact, if I had an idea for it, as soon as I saw the beat, I forgot it. I don't remember what it was. If anything, it was a beat I bought because I heard it and I thought it was good when I was buying like a bundle deal from Tone Jones, but I didn't have a concept for it that I could really lay down in concrete. So when that idea came to me, I was like, oh, this beat could work because it's kind of got that almost cybernetic, like futuristic vibe to it. So I thought that would work well. That has nothing to do with the discussion, so I'm going to plead the fifth for that question. Anyways, track number 9 is a song called To Iggy Azalea, which was another sort of challenge that somebody said, oh, make a song about them. So I was like, okay, I did it. I've done that before. Like, people just give me an idea, like, make a song about this, and I'll just do it. I'll figure out a way to do it. But what I really like about this was another Tone Jones beat, and I used samples from Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, where it said, screw the rules, I have money, and screw the rules, I have green hair. And then it also talks about just kind of tripping over life. And I really love that one because it's kind of got a hubris undertone to it, plus the nice, pretty melody. The lyrics are pretty good too. I like, especially considering it wasn't something that like I really planned. It was an idea. And I just kind of tried to go with my gut and make that work, like, from a realistic point of view, right? So yeah, from the river to the sea. I don't know what that means. But anyways, yeah, that's track number 9, another Tone Jones one. And then the last track is a Tone Jones beat as well. And him and a choir actually do the main chorus vocals. So, and it was talking about favor was the concept of this. I had this beat. I liked how he put it together. And I was like, okay, hip hop owe me a favor because I'm killing it. It got to start like, boosting me up there, recommending me as one of the, old school greats and whatnot. Well, of the new school, I suppose. Although that's why I look at it, I'm like, I put out so much work in such a short time. And if you really look at how many old school mixtapes and the gospel album and all the MC Key era stuff, like all the different eras that I've recorded music, whether it's seen the light of day and is released now or what we do have now, it's like I've always been very prolific, dedicated to the craft to always keep, finding something new to keep working through, experimenting. It becomes a process where, you start to figure out what works, what doesn't work so well, what you like more. And as time goes on, you find different things to give you inspiration, like just from real life. And that's the best way to do it. So with this beat, I think it's really nice, like the organs, the bass, the drums, they banging with that one. And Tone Jones just naturally had most of the best beats for this album. Like I did do, track number 2, Let My True Feelings Show, More, and Brazilian Queen. Dark Cloud Part 2 I did as well. So, and then yeah, the rest were Tone Jones and Dotanuki. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, for the most part, like I didn't do that much of the record, but I did almost half as far as my own beats, and then the rest were other producers. I paid them to do it. Um Tone Jones actually did the most on this record, really. Like him, he did Tribute for Samar, AI Girlfriend to Iggy Azalea, Hip Hop Owe Me a Favor. So he did four. He did four, I did four, and then Dotanuki did one, and Lone Wolf did one. So yeah, all around, I think it was a good mix because I'm the main artist, so I should do a good chunk of it. Tone Jones he's got a great way with instrumentals, comes up with all these different vibes. And then, Do Tanuki and Lone Wolf always just keep tossing me beats, and they've been doing that since the first album. So yeah, that's pretty much the album. And as far as like everything else goes, next week I'm going to get back to the reviews. And Groundhog Day this year, we're going to release I'm Afraid of Canadians, which somebody asked, like, why am I afraid of them? When you hear that album, you'll understand. But the idea actually came from a David Bowie song called I'm Afraid of Americans. Now, I thought that was kind of a funny sort of concept when I first heard it. And then, after all the traumatic stuff I've been through, some very horrible, dark experiences, we'll say, right? So, after going through things like that, I felt more comfortable when I was in Japan than when I was in Canada. So, I've just over the years of going through that stuff, I either isolate myself in my work, my culture, and whatnot, like the culture I like to study and all that. Like, I've noticed when I was there too, compared to here, it's like people were very easygoing. Whereas here, people, I guess you could say people here don't really understand what the concept of gaiety is. And, if you knew what that was, you would understand why there is such a culture difference. And for some reason, and to each his own, not saying anything really bad about anybody's personal preference, just my own. But, you know, being there made me really appreciate how much I could admire that quality. How that quality is like really deeply rooted within me from like, things I would see as a kid, things that were, a part of my influences growing up and everything the way it led. I could see that was always an important fundamental that seems lost in society nowadays, at least here in North America. But there, I felt like it still had maintained itself intact. It was, something that they had not lost over there, that we may have lost to a great extent even over here. So that's what I mean by that. And that's kind of the idea about it. And then, I guess you could say the album is supposed to be comical in some ways, but you could also say that, like, with this record, it's really me sharing the experiences of why I am the way I am, the impact of the negatives in the environment, and where I've experienced things elsewhere that kind of help me become more grounded. So I think it's an album that really shows growth and progress, like as an individual, especially if you was to go back to like my first album, listen to it, and hear the struggles I'm going through there compared to the struggles I'm going through now. So it's like you could notice a huge sort of night and day difference. And it's not that the other stuff isn't good. It's just what's more relatable now. Things have changed. And that's why I really love recording music more than anything. I think when I first started, this was the big thing for me too. I realized that it's almost like it seals memories in time. Like by making that song, you're making a story. You're making a musical sort of story about what's going on at that moment around that time. And that becomes his story. And that recording, from then on, that is that moment. It lives in that moment of time. And if you look back on it, it's going to feel as it felt when it was done. And I noticed that with like a lot of the old records I don't have anymore. I could remember a lot of those old mixtapes I made where I don't even have a copy of those now. They all got lost. They were rough recordings anyway. But I even think back and it's like those songs still hold the memory. And that's what's the beautiful thing about it. Like to even think back on it in itself is its own beautiful quality. And that's why like I really love making songs and I'm so prolific about it because you never know how much time you get. So you got to make the most of it. But yeah, anyways, that's my food for thought. And join us Monday at 7 p.m. and we will do another Stephen King book review, this time Salem's Lot. Till next time, Super Kami Guru Alucard, peace out. Matane Oyasumi Nasai.